Alright, we're back with yet another Magical Girl Raising Project volume. This time it was another episodes volume, a spiritual successor to volume 4, episodes 5 this time. It seems they are going to have a trend of using Greek letters to distinguish these episodes from now on, which is an interesting stylistic choice, but yes, episodes 5. So there were a few short stories this time around, exploring some of the magical girls from unmarked to jokers. And yeah, I have some thoughts. I'm going to perhaps edit this tier list just a tiny slight bit, and we'll see what my thoughts are as I ramble on about them. Like what I did for Volume 4, the original episodes, I'm just going to go through all of the short stories one by one, just give my quick thoughts on them, and adjust the tier list accordingly. So, first off is The Goggles and the Tortoise. This one was actually a really nice introspective look into how Nanako-san here, 7753, how she felt after the events of Limited. And, we in Jokers, like the epilogue of Jokers, or maybe the prologue of Aces, I forget when it was, we explored how Deluge felt with her whole tragedy, and Nanako-san was, more empathetic to Deluge because of how she felt after. It was like one or two lines, maybe a paragraph about it. This really went into how she felt, and how she was pretty emotionally broken for a good while after that. And May, being the emotionless tortoise that she is, doesn't quite understand or remember things as they were. So it's this kind of simultaneous chapter of exploring Nanako-san, kind of recovering from all that craziness and Limited, and May learning more about human culture. It's mentioned that May starts to read books and like children's books with pictures and sound, and she sounds out words and everything, and try to learn how to read. She's also a bit of a menace to Nanako-san, which it's mentioned that if May wasn't there, Nanako-san probably would not be able to recover mentally, or Nanako-san felt as if she wouldn't have been able to. So I kind of like their, bond that they have. It's a really weird bond, but it is pretty neat. I am gonna bump up Mana just a bit, because she was also in this chapter, and we kind of see how we get more hints as to how lonely she was with the absence of Hana, and just the loneliness that comes with that through the goggles that Nanako-san has, and just seeing Mana in a more vulnerable state. Yes, that's the word. A more fractured state, a weak and fragile state. It was more interesting to her character. I do want more. I definitely do want more of Mana, because now I actually have more of a growing interest in her character. So I do hope we see more of her. I think the humanization. I mean, she was pretty human, always getting angry and kind of riled up about the whole situation. There's a lot of people who would be like that. But it just wasn't grabbing me as much. This was the little tug that I needed in this chapter, so I do appreciate that. These two up here, Nanako-san and May, they're gonna keep their places because they're really solid for what they are, and I'm glad we got to see more of them. Next is Hot to Tot about music, which how to talk about music, but with Tot Pop. Where are you, Tot Pop? Low A, maybe? Oh goodness, I cannot find. There's so many characters on here now that I don't know where I put people. Where are you? Where are you? There you are, right here. Okay. So Tot Pop, the author's unintentional favorite this volume, season 3 short stories. In this one, we really see the power of her casual talking. In 30 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, she's already got multiple of these characters on her side, just like as friends. Like she talks to Magical Daisy. If I do recall correctly, she talks to Cranberry of all people, and talks with Cranberry, who would rather fight more than anything else. Like Tot Pop, just she's so casual and easygoing and open that she just, through the 3 stories that she's in, she just talks to people. In this How to Tot about music, she's trying to figure out who wrote Magical Daisy's anime intro and is trying to start a band with them. Eventually, she gets down this whole pipeline by, being so easygoing with everyone that she actually ends up finding those gas mask magical girls that she had in Limited, her friends, the anti-establishment faction, and it kind of just leads into how she became the leader of that. So Top Pop's great. She's gonna go right under Shufflin. I'm glad we got to see more of her, and I like her a whole bunch. Like, like just we I don't know, just three stories she was in, and she was just a joy in all three of them. She's super cheery. She has a nice sense of style that removes her or separates her from a lot of the designs already. Like, she's real memorable, at least in the design. And she's really been all over the place. The inspection department, Frederica, Cranberry, Magical Daisy. I don't think there's with Phil Rue and Patricia as well. She's been all over. Like, she's great, and she's hopping all around. Not anymore, mind you, because of what happened in Limited, but it was... Oh, Keek, that was the other one. There we go. With Keek, with the three sisters from the Puck Puck faction. Yeah, she's like best friends, according to Tot Pop, with Keek. Keek doesn't really like her that much, which is why Keek remains in C, but anyway. Yeah, it was just great to see her. I love her appearance in this volume. She was like kind of the highlight overall, which is awesome. Since we want to beat the Archfiend. Okay, I need to remember who this one was about. Since we want to beat the Archfiend. Ah, yes, this was about Cranberry and Fav. So this was about Fav's plan of making Cranberry kind of speed through the Archfiend cram school so she could be notable enough to hold exams so he could manipulate Cranberry to start the death game. Admittedly, this did make Fav a fair bit more interesting to me. And I kind of knew already that he was the one who made Cranberry the way she was, but we will learn that he kind of worked real hard for that through this story. He was bribing other magical mascots, digital type mascots of the FA series, so like people like Fav and Fal. I'm sure it's like Fa, Faa, all the way to Faz, Faz, Like, I'm sure there's an A to Z of all these little guys, and he was blackmailing the others and convincing them and swaying them with his words. Like, the author, Asari Endo, has really shown that even in the digital type mascots, there's more personality than we originally thought, which is pretty neat. I don't like him that much, though. So he only gets a little bit of a boost over Toko, which actually does appear in the next story, but I'll get to Toko in a bit. Cranberry is fairly interesting here in her cleverness in landing a hit on Archfiend Pam. She is technically somewhat of a focus in the story, but I appreciate Fav's perspective more here, just because it's more than we have gotten before from him, So it was pretty neat. Rainbow Friendship, like I mentioned a bit ago, was the next story. It involved Rain Pao and Toko. Toko is more bearable in this story, probably just because she's communicating with like the one person she likes, Rain Pao. Toko still is a little piece of work and prone to anger, but she does work her hardest for her nefarious deeds here, so it's neat. She's an F, right? And Fav was an F. I don't like vehemently dislike any of these characters or anything. It's just what they do for me as part of the story, And even though through all that, Toko's just still didn't really strike that much with me. But Rain Pao and Postery were super interesting in this story. Postery is gonna go maybe here. Right under, so maybe like, what is that, like one or two bumps up? Is Akane when I think about Akane and Postery, they're really like interchangeable. I think, right? Akane made me feel a little more, I think, with her with this just the pure shock of her story. So she'll go here. A little bit of a boost there for Postery. So Postery's kind of like in her human form as Tatsuko, right? She's a bit of a menace to try and become a friend with. Kaori Rainpow is for her mission attempting to become friends with Postery, but it's this really entertaining somehow chapter of like human Rainpow and human Postery, Kaori and Tatsuko respectively. Just their antics, right? So we even actually get art of their human forms, which is pretty rare in this series. But anyway, Postery Tachiko is all reserved, but is so reserved in such a way that she like is really hard to chat with or even interact with. And Rainpow is not used to this type of stuff as an assassin, so it's a little bit of a gag chapter, but it kind of shines a different perspective on how Postery was feeling. You know, I don't know if it was maybe intentional or unintentional how she conducted herself and her just pure wallflower energy in the school, but inside internally she was just struggling and with that absolute desire to follow Rainpow and need a friend, and I do think that makes her pretty interesting here. Um, I don't know. She might actually be under deluge. And now I'm thinking about it. I'll get to Tempest in a little bit, but anyway. Um, yeah. So just I don't know. It was really entertaining. I can't really put words to it, but I really enjoyed that chapter. Surprisingly so. Next chapter does involve Tempest here, Princess Tempest. Beyond the Triangle. It involved Tempest, and I don't even know if they have the boy on here that Tempest was crushing on during Joker's. I don't think so. Um, yeah, it doesn't look like it. I already forgot his name. So or Show or something like that. I believe was the boy's name. But anyway, Tempest says, the whole thing she wanted to be a magical girl to get with the boy who liked Inferno. It turns out in this chapter, it's revealed the boy didn't like Inferno, but does come to like Quake because of their manga revelation. This was okay. It was an okay chapter, a little bit more introspective on Quake. In that sense, despite my grievance with her human form activity, she is more interesting than Lady Proud. So Lady Proud has like nothing, it's rough. But anyway, so Quake does get a little bit of a boost. Tempest is about the same, Um, she's basically the instigator for how Quake handles herself throughout this chapter. Quake ends up, doing espionage to further Tempest's romantic goals and trying to be a leader and an older adult figure to help, the youngest one of the bunch. And, that's admirable. It was a cute little chapter. I do like the show, actually, surprisingly, a fair bit. He's probably right under Tempest in the same way that Tomaki is under Chirna. But I really don't see Show here. He got 2 arts in in the book, so he could have appeared, but whatever. I guess I could put Palette under Daisy. I mean, maybe, right? I don't know. I'm all over the place today. Anyway, next is Primula Farinosa. So that's probably a Latin or something. I don't know. This was on Monica Fukuroi, and this is, I don't know. She's Monica and Moniko. This kind of peers into her consciousness a bit, right? And how she kind of splits both of her human and her magical girl selves, but they're both working towards the same goal of research and powering themselves up, and just real self-centered in completely different ways. but she has this goal of wanting to thank Snow White for what she did, and everything like that. And she ends up teaching at Snow White's high school, and as Mariko, her human form, she sees Koyuki and is like, oh shoot, that's Snow White, and eventually they end up meeting, um, but because of Fall misinterpreting things, they fight. But I think it's kind of like a fight for fun, and that's how that chapter ends off. I'm really like shortening the introspection of the chapter and the background that we get on Mariko Fukuroe. Um, I think she's pretty great. I don't know. This chapter really boosted up my ranking of her. She was already pretty high, right? But when I think of the greats in front of her, I was like, is there that something that connects me more on a human level? I do think her human form is more interesting than Pechka. Um, she might be right there, I think. She might be a little bit above Pukin. So, yeah. I mean, awesome job, Marika Fukuroe. I really liked your side story. That introspection on what your research is and how you felt about the situation, and a little bit more about Styler Mimi and everything like that. Super entertaining. I'm glad we got to see more of you. And yeah, next is the Three Sisters Racing Project Restart. So this is a prequel to Restart involving the three Puck Puck faction sisters. Premium Sachiko is going above Calamity Mary. Not much higher though, because she didn't do much the chapter except get drunk, but her drunk side was more entertaining than her actual side. So yeah, this chapter, the Three Sisters and Puck Puck visit Keek. Keek is developing the Magical Girl Racing Project game that's used in Restart, and there is no evil king. It's just a great dragon that they have to defeat. So the Three Sisters are stuck in there for a few in-game days trying to figure all this stuff out, and it's just their antics and stuff. So Premium Sachiko is just going to get a little bit of a bump up for that. Oh, and also Tot Pop's in this chapter because, of course, is she? Yeah, she is. She might be. Who knows? No, yeah, she appeared with Keek twice in Top Pop's own chapter and in here, and that's what makes it a 3 because she also appeared with Filru. Yeah, okay. So the other sister, Uluru, isn't gonna change much. She's basically her usual self here, and Sorami didn't do much as well. I mean, they were all just kind of doing their usual stuff, and it was just more of them. And that's that. Keek is Keek. We see that she's annoyed at Top Pop existing, which, that's not helping you out, buddy, on my end, but alas. Wow, I love butchering titles. Are our real lives fulfilling? This is about Kafuria and 3 random magical girls that I don't think we have on the list here. I don't know, even though they have full art. Art at all, yeah. But they're minor characters, so they probably just be in C anyway. Kafuria, you're gonna go above Umbrain because now we have more of you. Kafuria, we see her with 3 other freelancers. Nagino, which is like an onion-styled magical girl who can release the scent of green onions. Oro, which is a magical girl with a giant silver afro that cushions blows, and they can store stuff in there. And Kokuri, which is a magical girl with a fox mask, right? A fox mask, I think. And she can control yen coins, or swap yen coins, and they move at like human running speed or something. Basically, the whole joke with these 4 is, Kafuria included, is that they have kind of jokish magical abilities. We see a little bit more of Kafuria and just her thoughts about her ability and how she doesn't save everyone because she really can't. But if a big disaster is going to happen, she would then get involved. We see her little grievances with, the difference between freelance and salaried magical girls. It's a little bit more that we have of her. It's not much to bump it up, I would say, in my opinion. Just a little bit, a little bit like Quake. It was a fun read though. I particularly like the three goofy freelancers. I actually want to see more of them, especially Nagino. I don't know, she just sounds cute with those like onion hair clips and the probably the goofiest ability ever, just spreading the scent of onions. And she actually uses it to make a truck driver choke by accident, which is pretty funny. Um, I believe in Aces, Endo, the author, mentioned about viewer submitted magical girls, and I wonder if those three were part of that, you know, and he's just kind of throwing them in side stories, or those viewer submitted magical girls. I say viewer, I mean fan submitted. The Magical Girl Rising Project has a website, though, out of respect for my own blindness to the series, I'm not looking at the blog or the website or any news or anything because I don't want to get spoiled on anything. So I don't really know, about how everything goes on that side. But, but, um, yeah, we'll see when that time comes if I do anything with that. I did just all the information I get about that stuff is from the afterwards, so I'm just kind of assuming that Negino and Oro and Kokori were from this. Maybe we'll see them in Queens or the volumes past that, some of them. But anyway, a cute little story. Next is the Elf of the Inspection Department. This was Top Pop, Phil Rue, and Patricia. Yes, Patricia. Captain Grace has just a little bit more than Patricia, so she's staying there. Um, but I really do like Patricia as a character, and really wish we got more of her. She's real chill. She's on the level of like Utakata in terms of chillness and freelancer nonsense, and just kind of a general vibe to be around. I wonder if Filru saw a bit of Patricia in Utakata since the story took place before Joker's. But regardless, this was a Filru perspective chapter. She's going to go see Patricia, and by accident, Top Pop end up like on an actual mission arresting rebel magical girls and this whole political situation when they just meant to be in some part of seminar. This was really fun as a chapter because Failure is just a really entertaining perspective. She's the down to earth straight man, of the comedy duo. And seeing just her bewilderment and jealousy and just like need for money again was really refreshing because I really think she could have survived at the end of Aces. Like, I feel like her death was just a little bit too much, like she already was out of there, and then that random shuffling went ahead and pierced her. Like she was like the Tama of Jokers, that one last one that could have survived but just died because they died, right? Like if Swim Swim wasn't Swim Swim, Tama would have survived. If Shufflin wasn't Shufflin, Failru could have survived. Like they had survivor status on lock, but the author was like, nah, you're gonna die right at the end just because I said so. Nothing against the author or anything, or the characters themselves or whatever. And it's just how the deaths in this series work, and we gotta accept them and move on with them rather. That's part of what makes this series, and I enjoy it, even when it punctures my heart into a million pieces, or I become like a ripple pin cushion in my emotional state. But anyway, real fun story in terms of this one. There was a lot of cool action too with both Top Pop and Filru with their combination of musical notes and threads and all that. I love Filru's threads that aren't actually lethal but really versatile in what they can do. So it's pretty great to see Filru again, and I was glad that we did. Next is General Pukin's case file, The Murder of the Mage. Pukin's staying where she is, as is Sonia Bean. This was... I found this one pretty funny because it starts off with the title page of each of these short stories says this story is set blah 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 blah, before this or after this or during this or right after or right before, right? This one says, this story is set so long ago that it has nothing to do with Magical Girl Raising Project. And that got a laugh out of me. It's the way it was worded. And you see it's Pukin and Sonia Bean. And like, oh, of course, it's 130 years ago before they got sealed, right? And we're going to see some Pukin torture, probably. No, it was more of a mystery. We get, for the first time in the series, a first-person perspective, and it's a side character, interestingly enough. Side character's name is Fatur, I believe. He's a human detective, or in part of a human inspection team that is aware of the magical kingdom, right? So that's a pretty interesting dynamic already in and of itself. He goes to this like mage who is named like Hoggle Torn or Thorn Hoggle something, with his butler Algrave. Hoggle's butler's name Algrave, and it's this murder mystery of who killed the mistress of the house. And back and forth, Pukin and Sonia eat out eat everything of the mansion's storage of food or whatever, because they're ravenous and black holes and just eat everything in sight. And they quote unquote solve the mystery, but then it's the Fatur is kind of left doubting everything. Basically, it's Pukin and Sonia who killed the mistress. Pukin used a sword to manipulate the Hogglethorn, to confess to the crime, even though it wasn't him. And the story ends with Fatura wanting to try and get in contact with Pukin. I don't know if that's out of some like respect for Pukin, or if Pukin kind of discreetly cut him with her sword to make him think that way. It could be really interpreted either way, but it was fairly interesting. Most interesting was just like the whole politics of it with the magical kingdom and the human world, and that first person perspective. So yeah, fun story. And then the last one, the blue magical girls are busy. So this is why I have Twin Dragons Panas over here, Panachi as Lapis Lazuline calls her. Yeah, so this was just more of Lapis Lazuline and her real chill and awesome and epic self. And Twin Dragons Panas has actually been mentioned a few times. She's a graduate of the Archfiend Cram School, along with the likes of Cranberry and Flame Flamey, who I really do hope we see at some point. Flame Flamey. Snow White has fought against her, I do believe. But anyway, Twin Dragons Panas, yeah, she's pretty great. She's also just kind of that like, well, in this situation, right, Panas believes that Lapis Lazuline defeated her when that's not the case at all. So Panas takes this sort of, if you remember from the original episodes, Mahiru, that human that Lazuline became friends with when she was in her magical girl form and dragged around town. It's basically a spiritual successor to that story, except now we have an actual named character to go along with that, and it's just more of their antics and all of that. It's gonna feel weird placing her in C, even above like Captain Grace, so she'll go bottom of B. Just because she has been hinted at before, and I did enjoy her in this short story. And we got more Lapis Lazuline and a Lapis Lazuline art, like I think it was like 3/4 body, like the thighs up, and the illustrator Maruino, awesome as always. I loved the art in all the volumes, and always great to see more Lapis Lazuline. I was very happy with that chapter, and if you notice, Lapis Lazuline has ended off both of the episodes so far. Maybe that was on accident, maybe it was on purpose, but it always makes me feel pretty satisfied with the ending of these episodes volumes. That's 2 for 2 for now. And yeah, that I do appreciate. So not as drastic of changes for this set. I think overall episodes did more to change my opinion on characters. But now there's also just more characters and have to compare them to other characters and this and that, right? But pretty enjoyable read. Next up is Peaceful Days of 16 Magical Girls, volume 9.5, I believe it might be. This is apparently somewhat of a tie-in to the anime of Unmarked, and this gives more side stories on the original 16, which is pretty interesting. So, my hopes for that one, please give me a reason to like these bottom three right here, the Twin Peaky Angels and Sister Nana. I just need a little more, just a little more, and I think I'd be great. Give me a Tama story. I'm super happy. Give me a Ruler story. She'll probably go up above Lapis Lazuline. Yeah, I'm excited. I love the Unmarked cast a whole bunch, so this is pretty great. After Unmarked, we're finally back to the arc that we got interrupted in the middle of, or the trilogy, I guess, not necessarily the arc, right? Jokers and Aces is part of a trilogy. Queens is, in fact, that last one. So I'm really looking forward to that and seeing what nonsense Puck Buck gets up to, and if there's any new cast members that I can rank accordingly. But yeah, episode's 5, pretty fun, pretty great, and Lapis Lazuline, always with her smile right there at the end. It can heal someone's heart, it really can, and it certainly healed mine. So I'm not complaining.